Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, I'll explain you what are the different types of LLM model deployment techniques, and while deploying, what are the evaluations that we need to perform, major evaluations that I'll explain, and also after model accessing or deploying, so what are the limitations that majorly that we face. So those also I'll explain. So first, let's start with what are the different types of LLM deployment techniques. So firstly, there are two. So one is a pre-hosted model accessing via API. You can just use whatever the pre-trained models those are there. Those are already hosted by some model providers. We can just access those hosted models simply, and we can able to use that deployment in our code so that we can able to access that particular LLM. Let's have a question. So when do I use or when do I prefer this type of deployment, sir? That is already hosted model, pre-trained model accessing. When do I use that? So let's say if you are launching an application and during that time you require some LLM, but you do not have a large number of users who are accessing that LLM or that chatbot or that model. So during that time, since you are having very less number of requests, it is better suggested to use already hosted models from model providers like Hugging Face or Grok. Grok is suggested because it provides you low latency type responses by highly optimized infrastructure. So on top of highly optimized infrastructure, they are hosting pre-trained models in Grok. So that's why they can able to provide us the response with low latency and high performance. So Grok is preferred. And we also have other cloud providers like AWS is there, which is providing us the models under Bedrock and SageMaker as well. And we also have Google like Vertex AI, they are providing the models inside it. And it also provides us a Google related development AI. So under that, they are providing a gamma models as well as Google newly providing experimental models as well. From there, you can able to access them through their API key by using some API endpoints. So that is preferred when you are having a less number of users. So during that time, since a low number of requests, so it is not necessary for you to really host a model on your infrastructure because hosting a model really charges you a lot. Then how this pre-hosted models really reduces my charges, sir? In pre-hosted models, they will charge you based on total number of requests, based on total number of input tokens as well as output tokens. So whatever the input question that you provide for a model and whatever the response that you get from that model, both input plus output, totally how many tokens are utilized, that will be calculated. Based on that, you will be charged by these model providers, LLM model providers. So that is obviously very less compared to hosting your model locally. So during starting days, or you can say during less number of users for your application, you can use or you can prefer this pre-trained models. Then why I need to shift to this? So let's say you have a huge number of users and you don't want to share your company data, particular company data, to any pre-trained model, and you are expecting for privacy concerns, that is you not expect to share your user request to any other providers like model providers. During that time, you can choose this local model hosting. So you can directly deploy pre-trained model, and you can able to access that through your model related API that was created by you. Now, based on my users, like for my application accessing users, since I have huge number of requests, and if I use this pre-trained model, then they are charging me a very huge amount because the total number of requests are becoming a large or more. So that's why they are charging me more compared to local hosting a model. So that's why, let's say I shifted from this pre-trained model accessing to local hosting model. I just taken a pre-trained model and deployed on my local host and providing that service to my clients. So during this time, I'm getting charging less. So that's why I just shifted from here to here. Now, let's say I want my model to be specific. That is, I want my model to provide the responses based on my company data or my services related data or specific type of data. So during that time, since it's related to our specific need, and we are expecting our model to provide that type of specific responses, we need to train our model with our data, and then after we need to deploy it on top of our local host. Then during that time, since our model is trained with our specific data, whatever the user requests, so for that related specific data related to my company, since it is already trained, do on top of that data only it will respond. In that way it can able to provide specific responses other than general responses. Okay, during the time of local hosting, so what do? We have a technique called training our model. Through that we can able to provide user specific responses. Let's say if I am using this model, or you can say I am at this stage, at the early stage, I want my users are not getting relevant responses for their question. So based on my company data, they are not getting the relevant responses. During that time, we will implement this RAG technique here. So during that time, we implement this RAG technique, where in this RAG technique, what happens is we will provide a company data, or we will store our company data in one of the vector store. Vector store is nothing but it is a storage. You can assume it as a storage where we are storing our company related document, where that document will be efficiently accessible based on the user request. Based on the user query, that document will be accessible for this model, and then this model can able to respond only related to specific content which is present in our document. So that's a RAG technique that even we implement on top of our local model hostings as well. Why this RAG technique is used? This RAG technique is used for providing user specific response. But if you have in this RAG, there is a limitation like, so what is the context window length, or you can say how much vectors that we can able to store in a vector store. So to overcome that limitation, we must need to train and deploy our model. So during that time, you need to choose this local hosting only. Coming to LLM model deployment techniques, these are the available LLM deployment techniques. You can use already pre-hosted model, or you can use pre-hosted model with some RAG implementation, or you can take a pre-hosted model and directly deploy it on your local machine and host it, and you can use it, or else you can use that pre-trained deployed model on your local machine with this RAG technique. or you can train your model and deploy your model on your local host and use it. So along with a trained plus a deployed custom model, you can also use with a RAG and provide the responses to your client. So these are the different LLM deployment techniques. Now, so let's consider, let's say I'm training my model. So let's move back to training phase. Like I'm training my model, and so during that time, what are the evaluations? What are the evaluation metrics that I need to consider? So if you see that, then these are the top most evaluation metrics that you need to consider. That is MMLU. So what is this MMLU, sir? It provides you a MMLU. You can see these types of data sets are already available. That is MMLU is one, and truthful QA is one, and a glue benchmark. These data sets already available. You can use these data sets in order to predict your model related accuracy, precision, faithfulness. So those things you can able to identify. This MMLU will provide you, if you analyze your model with this MMLU, then it will provide you the information or the score or the performance of your model with respect to the subjects like maths, physics, chemistry, science. So on top of that subjects like social, so on top of such subjects, how your model is performing, your model is responding, that score will be provided by this. Whereas this truthful QA will actually check the model related truthful answers. Whereas this glue benchmarks, or you can say, whereas this glue focus on natural language understanding tasks of our model. So overall, by using all these tests, we can able to estimate how good our trained model, so that we can able to understood with these common benchmarking techniques. And so you can also do a test based evaluation as well. So during this test based evaluation, we have two options, that is standardized test cases, like you can fix the input as well as fix the output and check the model response, so how the model is responding. You can use a BERT score to get the semantic relation between your expected and the response that you get from your model. Then you can able to identify so how much better your model is responding. And one more option is for test based evaluation, prompt evaluation. So rate how well it performs using different prompts or model. So that is one type of evaluation. Coming to this RAG based implementation evaluations. So if you are implementing RAG based technique, then this is for LLMs that use external documents to answer, like PDFs or websites. We can evaluate these type of RAG based implementations with this RAGA matrix. In RAGAs, we have matrix like faithfulness, relevance, context precision, and context recall. So what this faithfulness will provide us, sir? Output must be reflects to the source, like no hallucinations are there or not. So that score will be provided by this. Whereas this relevance is the retrieval data helpful to the question or not, relevant to the question or not. So that will be identified by this relevance score. Whereas this context precision will identify like right context is selected for the particular request or not. And the context recall, that was all needed context, or you can say whatever the context that is needed for answering that particular question, so that all context will be retrieved or not, that will be scored, or you can say identified by using context recall. Let's say, so during training, these are the evaluations that we need to consider. Let's say I trained my model and I deployed my model. After deploying, what are the issues that I face? What are the limitations that I handle? So mostly the happening or handling API limitations. After deploying, we can call that model using an API. So while accessing our model through that API, what are the limitations or what are the issues that I face? So those are majorly these two. So what are they, sir? One is ensure API limitations. So sometimes our model will, let's say, if my server got damaged, during that time what happens? Our model will be stopped, right? Responding yes. So since our server is not running, whatever the model which is present on that server won't run. So during that time, the response won't be there. So that we need to monitor. We need to monitor and alert us. So in every certain duration of time, so that we can able to identify if there will be any defects in that server or we'll get the responses or not by doing this monitoring and alerting. And let's say if any server goes down, so during that time what we do, we need to manage a backup. That backup we need to manage. And so let's say everything is working well, like my server is working and my clients are getting the responses. Now my clients are not getting fast responses, that is they are getting a very high latency, that is late responses. They are obviously expect low latency responses, right? Yes, that means a low time responses. So for that you can implement this caching. So if you implement this caching, then obviously they'll get, or you can say end users will get low latency responses. For minimizing the latency, we also have other approaches, like, so streaming option is there. You can use that streaming option, like whenever a token is generated, token by token, our LLM will generate the response. So during generation of that token by token, you can directly stream that response back to your client. So during that time, your response is already streaming. So that's why in low latency you can able to get the response back to your client, and your client will stay with you for long time if he is satisfied with your services. And use low latency providers in case if you are using any pre-hosted models, then choose fast response providing models or low latency providing models and caching again. These all are happened, or you can say this happened, these issues we can call it as up uptime solutions, like how much duration our server is in uptime. So that uptime, in order to maintain the uptime of our servers, we need to manage or we need to maintain these three things. Whereas for minimizing the latency, for low latency, that means fast responses to provide to our client, we need to maintain these things. And so these are the major limitations that we face while hosting a model. And these are the three techniques for deploying our LLMs. Like we can use already hosted pre-trained models from the providers, or we can host already pre-trained model, or train and then host our model, pre-trained model. So during training, what are the different evaluation metrics that we have is MMLU score, and you also have truthful QA and glue score. So these all we have. These all are data sets that are already available. You can use them to evaluate the score to identify your model performance. And coming to, let's say we're using a RAG based implementation with some document with your model, then these all will provide, these metrics will provide you the evaluation score of how your model is working with RAG implementation. the faithfulness, relevance score, context precision, as well as context recall. So this is all about different types of model deployment techniques, like LLM model deployment techniques, and what are the possible model evaluation techniques that we, or you can say major evaluation techniques that we have, and the limitations like uptime of our server as well as minimizing latency. How can we able to overcome those two limitations that we have understood in this video? I hope you understood this video and you got some knowledge regarding LLM deployment techniques and model evaluation techniques and handling limitations. I hope you like this video. If you feel this video is useful, then please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates. Thanks for watching again. See you back in the next video with another interesting topic. Until then, bye bye, guys.